I finally watched Extraction for the first time, and bruh. How was a Netflix original movie that good? Ayo, it's Joe, aka Mad Joe C. So I recently watched the Netflix film Extraction for the first time, and it was a freaking banger, man. This review ain't gonna be too long. I don't have an absolute ton of things I want to talk about in terms of the film's plot, story, or characters, as it was all pretty loose without being too layered or in-depth. That isn't me saying the movie's plot, story, or characters were weak. None of that stuff was. The story, plot, and characters were actually all very solid and were much more layered than those things are in most other action flicks. The main thing about the movie I want to talk about is just how high octane and revved up the movie's pacing was, as well as discuss the intense and phenomenal fight choreography, stunts, and camera work on display. So it's clear that Extraction is an action flick first and foremost. That's why I'm shocked it was so good and that I enjoyed it so much. I watched tons of different types of movies with action in them, though most of them aren't just pure action flicks. They usually have a pretty strong story with layered and nuanced worlds and characters. Movies with layered and nuanced worlds and characters are just the type of movies I enjoy. I usually am not interested in movies where it's nothing really but mindless, nonsensical action without any strong story or layered characters. Just ain't my cup of tea. Though there are plenty of people who eat up those type of films like candy, and good for them. Just because I'm not a fan of a certain genre of cinema doesn't mean other people can't be. Though, other people being fans of those type of films also doesn't mean I can't give them valid reasons for why those type of films are objectively worse than films with stronger stories, more layered characters, and more structured world building. Fine. It wouldn't be objective. It would be subjective and my own opinion. Since what is defined as good cinema isn't objective at all and is only subjective. Though it should be objective fact that pure action flicks with lackluster stories and characters are worse than films with strong stories and nuanced characters. Anyway, my point in saying all of that is that Extraction is a very rare case of an action flick that has a very well put together story and intriguing characters with just enough shown about them for the audience to be invested in and root for. The primary purpose of the film was to give people a heart-pumping, adrenaline-filled showcase of violent action. Though in order to have the action, there must be at least some type of narrative happening. This is where Extraction excels in comparison to most other action flicks that typically settle for the most low-effort, bare-bones script. The story in Extraction isn't anything phenomenal, but it is more than serviceable enough to give the action a genuine reason to be happening. The narrative is nuanced enough to give people a reason to care about these characters and to root and not root for different ones. It's a very simple plot. Tyler, the main character, must extract a Bangladesh drug lord's son, Ovi, from the clutches of a rival Bangladesh drug lord. It isn't a deep plot, but it's at least an intriguing one that gets the job done to put the movie in motion and give it a story to create. The story is also very simple. Tyler takes the job to save the kid, and while trying to escape from the antagonist's goons, develops a loose bond with him. Nothing deep or extensively layered, but is at least interesting enough to keep the audience invested in the pair and their struggle to escape the city of Dhaka. The characters, again, very simple. None of the characters have much depth or nuance, but it's the chemistry certain characters have with each other and the acting that makes them interesting. There are really only two characters I have anything to say about. First, obviously the film's protagonist, Tyler Rake. Chris Hemsworth did an incredible job playing the character and conveying the necessary emotions needed for different scenes. Tyler was everything a typical action movie main character is supposed to be. A stern, hardcore, kicking, punching, stabbing, shooting savage. Destroying every bad guy in his path, all while taking countless injuries and failing to stay down. I was very impressed with the fight choreography. It didn't feel too typical. I love in movies with fighting when the different ways people fight with their body or weapons is unique and sporadic. The way Tyler fought in the film was like a in the moment type of vibe. What I mean is that Tyler's fighting didn't feel like it was anything predictable that had been rehearsed. It felt very much as if his character was purely in the moment and making each move randomly due to adrenaline, instead of having a specific set of moves he's been trained with and is utilizing. That it made for some creative and fun to watch knockouts. I'm calling it knockouts instead of the K word because I don't want to risk this video getting any community guideline strikes for the usage of that word. I liked the touch of Tyler being a person who won't unalive children. He will for sure hurt them, but that's where he draws his line with inflicting violence on them. He knows they don't really have any part in trying to stop him and are simply being ordered around by the adults. It was hilarious seeing him make light work of that gang of kids that tried to unalive him within the middle of the movie. I was definitely vibing with the bond Tyler and Ovi had throughout the movie and enjoyed the scene of them in the bedroom of Tyler's friend's house.
Hold up.
Pause. For me, it usually comes off as lame and cringy when an action flick tries to have a moment of seriousness where something sad is revealed about the main character. The audience is supposed to sympathize with them in that moment, but it's hard to do that when the character is just a one-note strong guy with no personality or story that's been accumulating throughout the film. That's why I'm thankful this wasn't the case for Tyler. His character didn't have any substantial lore or backstory, but had just enough to make me feel for him. At the beginning of the movie, Tyler is seeing visions of a young boy on a beach. It's revealed later in the scene with Tyler and Ovi talking in the bedroom that the young boy was Tyler's son who passed away due to cancer. What cemented the authentic and somber feeling of the scene for me was when Tyler said he purposefully left his house for a mission because he wasn't strong enough to watch his son dying in front of him. That it felt very real and true to life. I'm not a parent, but I am certain that it must be extremely emotionally painful for a parent to watch their child slowly dying from an illness and knowing there's very little they can do to save them, other than getting them the treatment they need. After that scene, it was revealed by Tyler's friend Gasper that a huge bounty has been placed on Ovi, and Gasper says he'll share it if Tyler allows him to unalive Ovi. Tyler has a change of priorities and is now determined to get the kid to safety and keep him alive. Tyler disagrees with unaliving Ovi, him and Gasper fight, and just as Gasper is about to lay a killing blow on Tyler, Ovi shoots and unalives him with his own gun. What I liked about this scene was the very real and genuine reaction Ovi had, crying in Tyler's arms, after standing in silence for a moment to process what he just did. He was right in shooting Gasper to defend himself because if he didn't, then Gasper was literally going to unalive him. I've never shot anyone, and obviously never plan to, but I can only imagine how traumatizing it must be for someone to shoot another human being for the first time, ending their life in the process. Especially a kid who didn't even want to do it but knew it was a fight or die situation. The ending of this scene with Ovi sobbing and saying he just wants to go home and Tyler promising him he'll get him there is what solidified their bond and had me rooting for their survival. Tyler presumably died at the film's climax, and what makes it sadder is he wanted it. Obviously he didn't die because there's a sequel to the first movie and he returns. though in the eyes of the people within the film, he's dead. The lady who informed Tyler about the mission in the first part of the film had said something about him hoping he would eventually catch a bullet. Well, she was right about that. He was more than likely guilt-ridden from not being able to save his son's life and not even being there when he died. That all took a heavy toll on him and probably crushed his spirit and will to live. He was possibly hoping each of his missions would be his last. Tyler had put himself through numerous attacks and did everything in his physical human power to save Ovi, and when he knew he had finally succeeded by watching Ovi run towards the helicopter, it seemed he was somewhat at peace, even with having just took a bullet to the neck by the young kid who had a personal vendetta against him. If he was to have died at that moment, then he at least knew he was able to redeem himself and save a kid's life. After living years with the guilt of not being able to save his own and the shame of not even being there when he lost his fight with cancer. Tyler Rake is a freaking incredible main character for an action flick. As said, no substantially deep backstory, but just enough to make the audience care about and root for him. As much as I enjoyed Tyler as the main character and thought he had a more layered backstory going for him than most other action flick main characters, he actually wasn't my favorite character in the movie. It was freaking Saju, man! That guy was amazing! I did minimal research on the actor who played the character because I wanted to know what other films he's been in. Apparently, Extraction is the movie he made his Hollywood acting debut in, and I'm certain that anyone who's seen the movie can agree with me that his entrance into Hollywood was grand. Randeep Hooda did a phenomenal job playing the character, and like Hemsworth, was excellent at conveying the necessary emotions needed for different scenes. His character was supposed to be the typical second-hand man type person to someone of high power in these types of movies. In this case, it was Ovi's father, instead of the film's actual main antagonist. Though, I guess we could consider Ovi's father as being one of multiple antagonists in the movie, since he did threaten to have Saju's son unalived if he didn't get Ovi back. That is what it set his narrative story in motion, and I was very intrigued about him throughout the whole movie. His big fight with Tyler at the halfway point of the movie was so fun and wild, and I really enjoyed the way they went about deciding to team up near the end. I love in movies when there's a enemy of my enemy is my friend situation. I'm just a sucker for that type of plot scenario and thought it was done well in this movie. Though Saju was trying to off Tyler and save Ovi himself to cheat the mercenaries out of their payment, when Tyler calls him to ask for his help, they both determine they'll have to work together to escape Dhaka. Saju wasn't really a bad guy in the film. He was more so just an obstacle in Tyler's way that kept cutting him off from the extraction until near the end of the movie. His main drive and motivation for saving Ovi was so that his son wouldn't be unalived by Ovi's father. Unfortunately, I knew Saju was going to bite the dust in the film's climax when he had told Ovi he would hold off the people shooting at them while Ovi finds cover. In a majority of movies where a character says something like, "I'll hold him off, you go find cover," you already know that's pretty much their final hurrah before their death. If it's the main character saying that, then there's maybe a shot of them surviving, but if it's a secondary character saying that, then it's most likely game over. Ultimately, he went out like a champ, and I was sad to see him meet his expiration date. I would love to see more of his character, and think that a Saju origin movie would be a good way for that to happen. I'm sure plenty of others probably enjoyed his character too, and an origin movie would help add more depth to the version of him we see in Extraction. An origin movie for Saju is definitely not necessary, though that doesn't mean it shouldn't happen. Was an origin show needed for Andor Cassian? Realistically, not at all. though it ended up being literally one of the best pieces of Star Wars content, period. That show is an incredible example of something happening that wasn't necessary for the characters or world of a film franchise, but ended up being a great decision because of how enjoyable it was. We don't need to see Saju's origin, but it could end up being very entertaining to see in a movie or miniseries. Just like Andor, the name of the show could simply be Saju. It's a cool name anyway, and he would be the focus of the show. Saju was a very intriguing foil to Tyler and had a narrative going on throughout the film that made me appreciate how well written he was. I was completely invested in and rooting for him after his meetup with Tyler to squash their beef and after his phone call with his wife and son. The movie being an action thriller is the main appeal for most casual folk, so let's talk about that action. I already talked about the choreography when talking about Tyler, so in this part of the video, I really just want to talk about that phenomenal 12-minute one-shot fight scene that was meticulously edited to look as if it was all filmed in a single take. First thing I want to get out of the way is that it doesn't matter that the scene wasn't actually filmed in one take. What matters is all the high demanding labor that went into creating the scene. The fact that the film's director, Sam Hargrave, was strapped onto the front hood of a car, moving at moderate speed during the car chase, and then would detach himself from the car to keep the camera rolling when Tyler and Ovi hopped out of the car, that was so commendable and shows the extreme level of determination they had to film as much of the scene in a single take as they possibly could. Hargrave doing things like pulling a camera mounted to the roof of the car, through the shattered back glass window of it, or jumping off a building while attached to a pulley system in order to film the scene of Tyler and Saju tumbling off the awning. It's a testament to how much they care about their craft and creating as authentic and realistic of an experience they are physically capable of. Having a human holding the camera and manually filming the different jumps, crashes, falls, etc. had allowed me to get an idea of the physical impact the characters felt in those moments. It made it feel as if the camera was me following them around. I was able to feel the pressure and anxiety. It was a unique and fun stylistic choice of filming that isn't usually done to the extent it was in Extraction. Props absolutely need to be given to the stunt doubles too. The scene of Tyler and Saju's doubles colliding with the truck and hitting the ground without being attached to wires to slow the fall from the awning. It's insane stuff that doesn't look too crazy when watching it, but is a different story when being the one to do it. All the editing to stitch scenes together was done so seamlessly. I don't think the average casual viewer really noticed any visible stitching of scenes. I, though, am not a casual viewer of movies. I'm a very observant person by nature and have a sharp eye when looking at cinematography and different camera techniques being used. So when I was watching the scene, a few of the different seams were obvious to me. It didn't break or ruin the illusion of the scene though. After the first minute of the scene, I realized it was filmed to look like one take. Every few minutes until the scene ended, I remember I kept saying in amazement, "This one take scene still hasn't stopped." Me realizing so quickly it was a one take scene wasn't due to it being filmed in a poor or obvious way. It took me only a minute to realize it because, again, I'm a very observant person. I'm always observing and analyzing things I watch and things around me in life. So while I was engaged in the action and story unraveling, my mind was still thinking about all the technicalities of each scene, and so when I saw an action-heavy scene continuing for over a solid minute, I knew what the film crew were doing with the scene. There are numerous other challenges too, like having all the different locations match according to where each scene happens, having the different actors' makeup, hair, and outfits be consistent throughout multiple takes and scenes, having all the sounds match up with different props doing different things, making sure each location for the scene is locked down for safety. So many different intricacies that created such a physically and financially heavy toll in order to get the entire scene meshed together, to look as if the camera started rolling and didn't stop throughout the entire 12 minutes. Extraction's one-take scene was one of, if not my favorite one-take scene ever in any show or movie. I applaud everyone involved with bringing it into fruition, and am excited to see more of Sam Hargrave's directing and cinematography work in any future movies or shows he works on. Everything I wanted to discuss about the movie, I have. So I'm going to wrap this one up and cap off the video with some final words. Extraction is a movie I have been wanting to watch ever since it was released in 2020, but I never got around to it until my girlfriend watched it with some of her family and then told me I needed to see it. In my opinion, it was outstanding and slightly above average for being an action thriller, and I was shocked that a Netflix original was so freaking good. Most Netflix originals ain't great in my opinion. The GF had told me she thinks I would definitely like it, and had said the movie looks like if Call of Duty was a movie. I gotta give it to her and say what she told me was pretty accurate. A lot of the camera angles, stunts, fight choreography, etc. were very reminiscent of COD. The 12-minute one-take though, with the camera continuously filming the inside and outside of the car during the chase, pivoting to Tyler running, jumping, and shooting through multiple tight-quartered buildings, leading to the one-on-one knife fight between Tyler and Saju after tumbling off the awning. That entire sequence looked and felt like it was straight from a modern-day Call of Duty campaign mission midway through the game. The movie was bombastic, cinematic, and thrilling in such a visually refreshing way compared to most action flicks. Everyone involved with the film's production did an incredible job, and I am now very hyped to watch Extraction 2 and potentially do a movie review for it as well. I hope you enjoyed watching, and post in the comments your brief or extensive thoughts about the film if you've seen it. I love engaging with my viewers and would love to see what you have to say. Alright, that's it. Good times and positive vibes, everyone. Stay humble. Stay grateful.